So I love if you could take me back to your first period story and paint me a picture. Can you remember how old were you? Who was around you? Where were you? What happened?
I was in sixth grade. I don't know how old that would have made me.
About 12?
Yeah. What's that?
About
About 12.
12?
Yeah. Yeah. Probably 12. Yeah, sixth grade. I was actually not at my school that I normally go to. I was actually in my family's. I was in South Dakota and staying for a semester or something at my cousin's school in North Dakota. Um, my mom is from North Dakota. So anyway, that's where I was. So being in a foreign school, or like a foreign school to me,
Mhm.
made it a little easier because yeah, it was definitely something to remember. So I like went to the nurse's office. My mom never talked to me about my cycle or sex or anything, like not because she was conservative, but because she just didn't care to educate me, I guess. And so, yeah, so the nurse kind of explained everything to me, and she was so kind and just lovely. Like, honestly, my experience after being very embarrassed and not knowing what was happening and all of the things, yeah, she was really kind and kind of made, and she was like celebrating me. And then I felt good about, oh, okay, I'm becoming a woman. And so yeah, so I went from completely mortified, not knowing what was happening, to feeling celebrated and excited about becoming a woman. Um,
Yeah.
and I was not in my like actual school. So it made it a little easier, I guess. So
Yeah.
that was the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened when you went home and told your mom?
I cannot recall.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of my interactions with my mom, probably because I have them blocked out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't recall. My mom was always extremely vague about anything to do with anything.
Mhm.
So if I asked my mom for education on any topic, it was usually extremely vague.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I can't
And
recall.
then, okay, so you had your period every month from 12. So were you able to, you'd have to, was there tampons or pads just in the bathroom, or did you have to say to your mom, where's the pads? Or like, I need pads this month. Like, how did that
Oh yeah.
conversation roll as you like got older into your like 13, 14, 15?
Yeah, I remember my mom, asking me what I would want, and she would just make sure that I had it. I never used a tampon. I was always just like pads because I had no idea about tampons. I actually didn't even know where my vagina was located until I was like 16. Um, like
And
I had
look at your journey now where you're at.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So hence becoming a birth educator with emphasis on sex, right? Yeah, just I was completely lost. And despite my mom being actually very liberal, my mom was very liberal. She just didn't have any sense of education for me, I think. I think she had a lot of shame around her body and around her sex life. My mom was very promiscuous.
Mhm.
So I just think that she didn't know how to talk to me about it.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah. So she would get me what I needed. I think my friend in high school showed me how to use a tampon.
Mhm.
Because I was like, I really want to go swimming, but I can't. And she was like, why? And I said, because I'm on my period, and what are my options? Like I don't know how to use a tampon. And she's like, okay, like come here, let me show you, And so yeah, my friend showed me how to use a tampon when I was like 16.
Okay.
So yeah, I was a junior in high school before I used a tampon.
Okay.
And you know what? And to this day, I don't use tampons
Mhm.
because I kind of respect my body's like, gravitational release in the process. And when I do use a tampon, it typically extends my period.
Mm.
So it kind of draws things out a little bit. Not that I bleed more, but it just takes longer to end my cycle.
Wow, that's
So
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you have any brothers and sisters?
No,
No,
only child.
only child. Okay. And was your father in the house then when you got your period?
No, mm-mm. No, I didn't move. Actually, funnily enough, I didn't move in with my father until I was 15.
Okay.
So, yeah, I switched households. I lived with my mom. My parents got divorced when I was 4, and I lived with my mom until I was 15. And then I moved in with my dad when I was a crazy teenager. God bless his heart. Um, so yeah, I had all of that, um, coming of sexual age, like under my father's roof, where he had absolutely no uh feedback or like any had no idea what was going on. So yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. And then did you ever know when your mum was on her period at all?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
Like I said, I think my mom had a lot of shame around her being a woman, just a lot of, yeah, unresolved things there.
And how do you think that coming through her unconsciously played a part in you becoming a woman and then your teenage years and then your 20s?
Such a loaded question, Andy. I think it really made me want to empower women, and it made me very hungry to learn what I didn't know,
Mhm.
you know?
Even in your
Um,
teenage years?
yeah, for sure. I
Wow.
was like, I think in my teenage years, um, because sex was kind of like taboo, all like even the body, all of those things. I was very interested in those things. And I hadn't actually, I was on track to pursue my medical degree. So I was like in all of the AP classes, I really wanted to be a gynecologist,
Huh.
actually. Yeah.
Really? Oh,
Yeah. And so
wow.
I had this incredible anatomy and physiology teacher who I was in her AP class. She she made the science so interesting. And because we were in South Jersey, the Philadelphia had the Body World Museum. Are you familiar with that exhibit?
No.
It's actual human, uh, you know, I don't know what you call them, but it's actual humans, human bodies that have been donated to this exhibit.
Oh.
And yeah, and they're frozen in time essentially. Um, so I spent so much time there, and I thought that was my career path. So instead, I ended up going to massage school right after high school. I went to massage school, so I learned all about the body, and that was in pursuit to pay for my college degree because we were poor.
Mhm.
So I thought this will be perfect. Um, yeah, and so my whole career, essentially, besides my 7-year marketing career, which had nothing to do with physiology, I was actually empowering women and birthing their businesses. That was kind of my goal in that career I had. But and then doula work, right? Like it all kind of came full circle into empowering women in their bodies. So here we are.
Wow, that's so interesting. And so you kind of like reverse role modeled your mom. And yeah, that's very interesting. And how did your experience initially affect your relationship with your period in your teenage years? Like, were you on birth control? Was there any problems there, or yeah, what was your experience there?
It's such a good question. My mother put me on birth control, even though I was not sexually active when I
Yeah.
was 14.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was my 14th birthday. My mom said, you know what, we're gonna go on birth control. Just I can't deal with you getting pregnant, and I don't know if you're having sex, so we're just putting you on birth control. Um, I had a psychotic episode
Mm.
because of it. And yeah, I went into a very, very deep depression, tried to take my life. It was really terrible. So that was when I was 14. And so of course, when I went to the doctor and they're like, what kind of medications are you on? Birth control. Nobody said anything to me about that being maybe the cause of my, right? Never, not until I became a doula, started investigating hormones and how that can change your brain chemistry and right.
Wow.
And I realized like, oh, that's why I try to kill myself. Hello. So while I was institutionalized, by the way, my mother let me stay there for 2 weeks, even though I was not mentally ill. I started feeling amazing. And you know why? Because I wasn't on birth control. I started feeling like myself again. And so in all of this, this is retrospect in my 20s, right? Like where I'm going, oh, like making, connecting the dots.
Mm.
And then in my right before I got married to my first husband, I've only been married twice, but I got married really young to my first husband when I was 23.
Were you on
They
birth control
found
then?
no, I never took birth control after that.
So
No.
your mother, because I know she's your mother, like she and the doctors, I don't know, I'm not going to use the right words. It's like they allowed you not to go back on birth control. Like,
They,
why? Like, did they connect the dots then, or?
they didn't. No, my mom wanted me to continue taking it, and I told her I didn't want to. And I didn't actually make the connection that I just said I was feeling better when I wasn't taking it. And so, and actually shortly after that is when I went to go live with my father. So because
Uh,
my mom couldn't handle the fact that I tried to kill myself. So she sent me to live with my father.
mm.
Um, yeah. And of course my father was like, we're not putting you on anything that's going to enable that kind of behavior, right? My dad was way more conservative than my mom.
And do you think at
So
that time in your life, switching houses, and I know your mom needed your dad to step in, do you feel that the masculine of your dad helped you through the rest of your teenage years?
I do. Absolutely. Yeah. My dad, um, yeah, he's awesome. He's not with us anymore. So
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
it's okay. It like sometimes it strikes a chord and sometimes it doesn't, but yeah. Yeah. His presence really, I think, shifted like the trajectory of my relationship with like myself and with men and a lot of things. So I'm really grateful for that shift. So
Mm,
everything happens for a reason, I guess.
yeah. And then tell me, you're going to go talk about your husband and you met him at 23?
Oh yeah. So I met him actually when I was like 22, I guess. And around 23 before we were talking about getting married, he, Christian purity culture, right? Like we have to get married, married to have sex. Um, I started going to
That's what
the,
you were in as well?
yeah, yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I had to go to the gynecologist, or not I had to, but I went to the gynecologist to make sure that I was good. And they found polyps on my uterus.
Mhm.
And so they wanted to test me for my cancer, like if there was going to be, if it was cancerous or anything. It came back negative, thank God. But yeah, and I had really irregular periods up to that point. So my whole life I had very painful, very irregular periods. And what I mean by that is like I would have a period, um, what like 1 month and then I would have another in 2 weeks or, and then it would kind of like, and then I would go 2 months without having a period. So it was just like the polyps, I think, really interfered hormonally with my cycle. And once I got them removed, it was like clockwork. I was like every 28 to 30 days, I was having my period.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
yeah, so that shifted things a lot. My husband and I, yeah, we had unprotected sex all the time and I never got pregnant. So I thought maybe I was going to have challenges, and I didn't have any challenges once I met my, my new boyfriend after my divorce. So we got pregnant right away. Like 3 months into dating. So no regrets.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think God had his hand in that, didn't
Oh,
he?
yeah. 100%. Yes. So, yeah, he's the love of my life, and yeah, couldn't have chosen a better person to have an accident with, but yeah, we actually, when we met each other, we fell in love right away. I think we just spent, like, he came over for a day and then stayed for 2.5 weeks. And, yeah, it was just one of those things. And we talked about wanting to have children together, and we were planning our move to Thailand. We wanted to be digital nomads and have that life. And then we got pregnant and moved to
Wow.
Austin, Texas instead.
And that was a totally different experience, relationship, energy to that first husband.
Oh yeah. World apart. My first husband was spiritually abusive. He was infantilized by himself. Like, he just wanted to be a child for the rest of his life. And brilliant guy, like, just totally smarter than half the people I've met. Completely brilliant, but just did not want to grow up. He did not want to. He had no ambition to have a house or children or any of that, and I was ready. So
Yeah.
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 So we parted ways on that you know unalignment of desire, I guess.
Okay. And then if we go back to your mom, did you grow up noticing her do nice things for herself? Did she take care of herself in a wellness way? No.
No, my mother was alcoholic and is an alcoholic. So yeah, she doesn't take good care of her body. She really abuses her body to this day. So
Mm,
it's unfortunate.
yeah. And then did
Yeah.
you see her being like, was she more of a go, 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 go? She had to always be busy and do things, or was she in the middle, or was she like over here, like just can't handle life type of thing? Where was she on that scale?
Always busy. My mom, I think when she was always out, she'd work hard, play hard. Like, that was my mom my whole life. She wasn't around. My mom just wasn't really around in my life. So yeah, she's still like that. She still does her own thing. Now she's retired. She was in the military. I think that to give you some context. She was an artist in the military. So she was like a graphic designer. Both my parents are artists, and they both served in the military. So there's a lot of, like, I think, just cognitive dissonance about, like, their true personalities, like, fitting into this, like, societal restrictive container. Yeah. And my mother, I think, like, being in the Air Force, there's a lot of sexism, and just, she was traumatized. I mean, there's really no other way to put it, but she was raped. And I mean, there's, like, a lot of horrible things that happened to my mother in the military. So
she
I
with
think
that alcohol, she's self-medicating all the trauma that she's been through.
100%. And she doesn't want to treat her alcoholism in any other way than she sees it now as a disease like cancer, like that she cannot cure from. She'll always be an alcoholic. That's what's going to kill her. She's fine with that. Doesn't want to get better.
And so how have all those patterns that you just brought up about your mom have impacted your life?
It makes me go the other direction, right? Like, thank you for setting an example of what I don't want in my life. I'm going to do all of the opposite things. So
where do you think that comes from? Like, that is amazing to have, because you could have gone the opposite way. You could have fell in, like, gone into that spiral of alcohol addiction because of the way your mom was, the patterns that you've seen from your mom, and just roller coasted that way. Like, this is amazing how you've shifted your attitude, seeing what your mom does and says, I don't want this in my life. Where do
Yeah.
you think that comes from?
The Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, like I found that connection really, really early. I think when I moved in with my father, like my dad healed his alcoholism through faith, like, and he always struggled. Like, he always struggled because he did not know how to manage his trauma either. Like the other tools outside of prayer, right? Like, he didn't know what to do. And there was a lot of stories around masculinity and getting support, talking to somebody, therapies, right? So I think he really needed a lot more help than he was willing to get for himself.
Mhm.
But yeah, he for 10 plus years really went back and forth trying to he would be sober for several years, and then he would fall off the wagon and then he'd get back on. My dad never stopped trying to be healthy. Yeah.
Mm.
So until he got cancer. And
He got
that's
cancer.
what, yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And so was your mom and dad on the path of you coming to Jesus as well? Were they with you on that?
I mean, my dad took me to church. But he was very much on this, like, you'll find your way, you'll find your path, never pressured me. My mother did not have any relationship to the church at all. Like, I mean, I think she tried when she was when I was younger, she had me baptized. Yeah, but I don't think that was like, faith was never really an important part of my mom's life the way that it was for my father.
Yeah, but what a blessing for you to you had that in you and you wanted to go there, and you must have like attracted the right church at the right time, the right community, the right pastor, the right, for you to keep going back and then to receive Jesus and have your faith now, and as you go through because you were 15 then, like, that is incredible.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, I mean,
you're
I
like a
feel
wise soul, a wise soul.
thank you. No, honestly, it's like I really just feel like it was a divine thing, like God lined it up so that I was able to break the generational curses in my family. And I come from a very long line of alcoholics.
Mm,
And
wow.
I'm very blessed that I don't struggle with that. I'm addicted to caffeine, Lord knows. I love it. But given the history of my family, I have a lot of grace for any of my shortcomings because
Mm,
of where
yeah.
I came from, so and I'm always improving. I'll never, that's what this life is. It's a classroom. And so I'm really grateful for my faith, and I practice by myself. I don't have I'm not belonging to any congregation or church or any of that,
Mm.
which truthfully I prefer, because I don't like the conglomeration of power on one pastor. I think it's just having ministered to so many pastors and being part of so many leadership teams. Like, I worked for churches, I went to Bible college, I did all the things. I
Ah,
decided, church is not my thing until I find a church that shares power, like amongst the congregation and the studied of the word. Like, I just wouldn't participate. But I think those churches are happening, those churches are forming. And so I follow Pastor Francis Chan and kind of what he's seeing in the word and what the Holy Spirit is doing. And I think we're going to go back to the way that church was meant to be. I don't think it was ever meant to be like this big mega church experience and all this,
yeah.
thing on one pastor. It's a lot of pressure for one pastor to hold up to. So anyway, I
Yeah.
hope that that's the direction we're going in, is more communal, shared experience.
And so now I want to dive into your femininity. So, how connected do you feel to your inner femininity? And when I say inner, I use the words of like nurturing, going with the flow, agreeable, cooperative, intuitive, creative. Just some of the words that came up. Inner femininity. How connected do you feel right now?
Like at this moment, or just like in life?
Like in life at 34,
Yeah.
about to turn 35, like where you are
Yeah.
in life now.
My connection to my femininity has dramatically shifted since coming out of my burnout phase, I'll call it. I was the primary breadwinner last year in my family,
Mhm.
and I made the shift out of one-on-one doula work into just doing birth education in March. So March was the last birth that I took. So it's only been a couple months that I've been able to be really present in my feminine flow, I feel like. And yeah, for like in terms of like intuition and all of those pieces, I think I've always very much been in tune and in flow with that. But when I was working a full-time job and running a doula agency and attending births,
And your
that was
family
a lot.
and your little
And my family, not to mention that. Yeah, just on the work end, it was yeah, a lot. I was very much in my masculine, and I love my masculine. I think like that side of my get things done, like go getter, very I've built 3 businesses over the course of my very short life, and I'm proud of myself. I love operating in that space in business and numbers, and well, I'm not great at numbers, but I'm good at at making money. Just managing it is a whole different thing. My husband's helping me with that. But yeah, I feel like my feminine flow is definitely enhancing since I've kind of made a shift to more full-time motherhood and birth work being my only 2 focuses. I feel like I'm very much more able to be in that flow.
Okay, yeah. And what are some of your daily activities that help keep you connected to that inner feminine?
I think spending time with my son is a big one,
Yeah.
right? Like being able to nurture him and cuddles and engage with him and help him grow, and like all of those beautiful things of motherhood. Like I think that's very much part of it. And I just feel without having that pressure to produce and create and like that, all of those things that go into having a full-time job and running a business, which has been my life pretty much my whole life. Without that, I feel like I'm able to show up without distraction in my relationships. So my relationships, my friendships, my relationship with my husband, all of those things are just much more like tangible, more rich, because I'm fully present for them and I'm not thinking about all of the other things.
Yeah, yeah. And then how would you describe your mother's inner femininity? I know we've touched on it before, but how agreeable is she? Cooperative, going with the flow, intuitive, creative, nurturing?
I think it's changed a lot since my childhood. She was very masculine. I don't think my mom really had a nurturing bone in her body. My mom was very fun though, like in terms of like celebrating, everything was a celebration, and any reason to drink basically. My mom she was always putting on a party. So that's what I grew up with. My mom just made things. That was the flow that I experienced growing up. Now my mom, she paints all day. That's what she does. She drinks wine and paints.
Okay.
In terms of her like nurturing side and all of these things, my mother is still, I don't think my mother was meant to be a mother. And I don't mean that like in to diss her at all, but I
No,
just
of
don't think
course.
that's never really been her desire. She's very much focused on her own needs and her own world, and she doesn't really care about other people that much. So which is fine. She's, you know, I give her the artist card, like, you know, you're a quintessential artist, I'll give you that, you know, you just kind of live in your own world. And my father did to a certain degree, but I think my dad cared for other people, so there was that. And he was self-aware to the point of like, I don't want to destroy my life with this addiction, I want to try to get better. And he had that awareness, my mother doesn't. So anyway.
And then
Yeah,
where do you think your feminine and masculinity was in your 20s? Where do you think that was?
very feminine.
Oh,
Yeah, very.
yeah.
I did business in a way. So like when I started my massage practice, it was very much from this feminine space. Like it was all about the experience, and I didn't really care about the money, but the money flowed because I would just attract very wealthy men. So, yeah, which is also kind of why I quit, because I was getting a lot of sexual harassment issues. You know, it was just one of those. I was in a chiropractor's office, but it doesn't stop, you know. So yeah, so that's how I did business, and I very much operated from this place of like abundance and agreeability, and like we'll do things, like I have expertise, but at the end of the day we do things the way you want them to be done. And um very agreeable, and I think that affected my bottom line a lot, right? Because I would just kind of do whatever I wanted, my, you know, whatever my clients wanted. I definitely got pushed around a lot until I realized that, okay, you actually have to have a backbone. So that took a little bit of time to develop, but I was very, very much in my feminine in my 20s. And also I think Christian culture is very much puts that like, this is how you're supposed to look and how you're supposed to dress. And, you know, so I followed the guidelines.
Okay.
So.
And then how about the divorce of your parents and being in a separated home? How do you think that affected your femininity?
So that's a big one. I think it's kind of like not having my dad around all the time, I think was like actually, yeah, really not great for me. But I think it's less to do with like, I think it's less to do with the fact that it was like the absence of male masculine energy. It was more to do with the fact that my mother just wasn't present or able to parent at all. Yeah. So I think it could have been, my worth could have been much more nurtured and developed if my father was around for the entirety of my childhood. But he was also as present as he could be. So I spent every summer with my dad, you know, until I was 10.
Okay.
I spent every summer with dad, and then we moved to Turkey
Oh,
and then Hawaii.
oh,
So
wow.
yeah, for 6 years of my young adolescence, you know, I couldn't see my dad. And that was really, really hard. But yeah, as far as like my dad being present, like even though they lived in different states, my dad was as present, I think, as he could be. And I was able to spend summers with him. And, you know, I think I got enough to be a stable human.
Yeah, yeah. And you've done so much reflection to be able to articulate this. It's very inspiring to listen to. And then just one last question on your dad. How did your relationship with your dad affect your attitude towards men?
That's a good question. Actually, that's a question I have not pondered really. That's a stumper. I don't really know. I think if I were to give like a gut based answer, I think I was attracted to kind of broken men, if I'm
Mhm.
honest. Like my because my dad was always trying to fix himself, you know, he was brilliant, an incredible artist, but he was always trying to fix his addiction. And
Mhm.
so I think like my first husband was an addict, but not an alcoholic. He was addicted to pornography. And so I think there was something about that that was very attractive. And then attractive, like I can fix this person, you know, or so I don't know, some kind of weird thing. Um yeah, because I idolized my dad. I wanted to be with someone like him, I
Yeah.
think,
Okay.
you know, a weird Freudian way. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I you know, he was like the only human on this planet that I think I really loved, you know. So, but thankfully my partner now doesn't struggle with addiction. So
And what
we're
similarities, is there any similarities between your partner now and your dad?
so yeah, so
Yeah.
many. They're both yes, it's interesting because like even like weird quirky things like catchphrases and jokes and stuff like he would say and I'm like, are you tapping into my father or like what is happening? um they're very similar in the artistic sense, like all the good qualities of my father, it's like they're yeah, they're in
That's so interesting. Yeah. Very good. And then my last question is, with all this work that you're doing on the feminine and that attracts the masculine, what do you want to attract most in your life right now?
hmm. We are looking for, I think just as a family, I think we really are looking for home. Like we want to like Austin was a really good fit for me, but not a good fit for my husband.
Okay.
And um I think so next we're in September, we're moving to Portugal and we really have a desire to buy a home and you know, and we're positioning ourselves, our finances and all the things to do that. And so um yeah, so there's that piece, like we both are like our family, we're collectively desiring home and we love Arkansas, to be honest. Like if we stay in the States, this is where we're probably going to live.
Mhm.
uh, and then the second thing for me personally, I want to continue doing birth work in a virtual way, in the virtual space. And I think my biggest gift is connecting people, to the right resources.
Mhm.
As a doula, that's like one of my biggest jobs is like you're having a thing. I'm not trying to be your everything. I'm not your therapist or your pelvic floor person or your sexological body work. I'm not doing all of the things, but I know the person that can help you. And it's generally always a really good like magical fit. And it's mostly because I think I attract people who like the people that I know, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I think that's really the gift, is that like I attract like-minded people. But the next phase of my career is like I want to just find my place in the virtual world. And I think it's really just about like that work. I just have to, you know, take it one step at a time and make those daily investments and just let time be the thing that builds out
Mhm.
my um this next phase of my career.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so exciting. And now I've also seen, which I would never have known if I didn't ask you all these questions, is you've lived in Turkey and Hawaii. So do you have that you're flexible to move around the world with your family inside of you?
Yeah, totally. I'm open to going anywhere they want to go. I think we do want to find kind of like a base,
Mm.
you know, like a base camp, if you will, because um yeah, and community is really important to me. It's less so for my husband. Like he doesn't he doesn't need like I need a community to be investing in and to be loving on. And yeah, he doesn't need that as much as I do, but we both want to build kind of like a permaculture type of community where we're growing our own food together and we're doing, communal type of shared talents and, just those kinds of things like within our community. So that's something that we do both desire. It's just less, and it's more important to me than it is for him.
Yeah.
So,
And he's happy to move to Portugal. Like he said, you like where you are now more than him, but is he like really, you're on both on the same path for Portugal? Like you want to try there
yeah,
first? Yeah.
we're going to try it. Why not?